What's going on, guys? This is Remy with Level 1 News, and I'm here to give you a review on LG's latest smartphone, the G7 ThinQ. While there's been a lot of cell phones out there, especially in the Android market, and lots of competitors, a lot of center stage stuff is either between the Pixel or Samsung's Galaxy. So, is there room for another smartphone? Short answer is yes. LG has been making its way, in a tough market of dominating smartphones with the Galaxy and stuff on hand, but they've always been sort of, treading the path a bit with the G6 and the V20 and then the V30. So it looks like they have gotten things in the right direction, and this is just another step up. And I'm now talking about the G7 ThinQ. So before anything else, let me show you the phone, and it is right here. Very nice, slick, black phone that I have right there. And this is it powered on. That obviously might look familiar to you, but definitely a good looking phone. When you tap it on, looks like that. So great looking phone, great looking stuff. I have no idea why I did that. Definitely looking good. So the phone sports a bunch of cool features. It sports a Qualcomm 845 Snapdragon processor, really fast. Has the latest Android software, 64 gigabyte of storage, and either 4 gigabyte or 8 gigabytes. 4 gigabytes or 6 gigabytes of RAM, with a dual 16 megabyte camera. So a lot of cool stuff, but I'm going to get into some of the features a bit more in depth right now. So tossing a lot of that aside as the very hardware things or whatever, a lot of the cool things with this phone in particular is some of its own features that LG has sort of went with beyond the fact that it's a pretty powerful Android smartphone. So a few things is, and one of my favorite things is the super bright display. So basically, you have this display like this, and you have this display like this, and it's pretty bright on its own, really. Like if I turn it up all the way, like I'm getting an insane glare. I'm getting an insane glare because you could already see that it's pretty bright on its own. But then, what LG has done is that they've made a dedicated white pixel in it, and I like to think that it does two features. One is that it basically makes whites really white on screen. So while I'm getting pretty much a glare and stuff like that, and that's from the light and stuff, and things that you'll see in terms of the apps and everything else. One of the cooler things is that while it looks pretty white in terms of the actual the white that you see on screen, it makes it super bright. And it has like its own like ultra brightness mode or super brightness mode, which come to find out, if you bring it up, it's right there. All you have to do is tap the actual icon for brightness, and for a couple of minutes you'll get a boosted white mode. Right there is that at its brightest, and boosted is like pretty damn bright. So that lasts for a couple of minutes, and that helps to see things in really, really bright locations, like outside, like on the sun and everything else. So really, actually really cool. Works pretty well. Wish it just lasted the whole time so I could do that, but I can imagine that would destroy your battery in minutes. And the battery in itself is pretty good, so no complaints on that, except for when you're messing with like really, really dense features. So that's what that has. Another cool feature is, and I'll jump into the camera a bit, is things that have to do with the camera. And so they basically, with their ThinQ series, a very heavy thing that they focused on was the camera AI. So obviously there's the AI cam right there, and what that lets you do is identify different objects that you're looking at, and it'll pretty much tell you, like, if I'm looking at like a baseball, it'll sort of kind of identify that it's a baseball, or it's some sort of like sport of some kind, or sport element, or anything else. I found that works about like 50% of the time. It really guesses an insane amount. It's like a really crazy. It's like playing charades with your phone, in the funniest sense of that, or whatever. When you start seeing a bunch of words getting spewed out and it's trying to guess what it is, and then sometimes it narrows it like, okay, I think I know what this is, versus like it gives you the wrong information sometimes, or it's just like it could be one of like 30 things. I'm like, it's one thing. So that works decent, but not the best. And that's LG has actually come out and said that it's constantly learning what it is. So that's something that's in full development. It's gonna constantly be learning. I thought another really cool thing with this is that from Google's I/O that they had a little bit ago, they actually were talking about that Pixel dedicated, or I should say the dedicated feature that was on the Pixel phone only, which was it's pretty kind of like the same thing, and sort of the way even Samsung's Big C works, where you know, it tries to identify items on screen, but then it pulls up any sort of like history or search result that it can. So it works with like barcodes, it works with all types of items, and it asks you like what it is, and then like, okay, well, this is the things that are related to it. Now that's something that's constantly learning every day, but it's what's really cool is that this phone is one of the phones that support it, and it's not like a ton of phones right now, and it's something that's going to be rolled out more later, but this was pretty much one of the phones that did it right away. So when you get it and it ends up working, it's like I can point to something here. So like, let's say, you know, I got shades here. All of a sudden I'm like, I'm gonna use it. I'm gonna tap on it, because you tap on the actual thing, and then boom, got sunglasses. So pretty cool. It works, and then it can identify if you want something of that similar nature, or if you want to just find out more about the product. So that's very cool. It ends up working really well. So that's that. So, you know, like, it has a really good camera in itself because of the super brightness display, and that's just on that. It also has like a super brightness mode for the camera, which boosts its low lighting. So basically, when you're in low lighting settings and trying to get a good focus on a shot, it gives it more detail than it would like another kind of smartphone, where, you know, you wouldn't normally get that because of the harsh conditions of it being too dark. So it works decent. It's not like an insane improvement, but it's an improvement over all the phones that don't kind of have any sort of algorithm or anything going on for that particular thing. And then it also has the portrait mode. The portrait mode works pretty well on both sides. What I really like about the portrait mode, the focus shot, is that it's doing it live, so you're seeing what it's gonna look like by the end result. When you're doing a portrait shot of yourself, it'll do it post processing, and you'll see it. But when you're doing it like the back camera, you actually see live what is, you know, being focused on and what's not. So you could actually live detect and what you want to appear in the way it should look, and it'll add, I guess, detail from there. And then even with the front facing camera, the portrait shot, you can have like a beauty shot filter, so it kind of, you know, corrects any small imperfections or cleans up the image pretty well, whether it's you or something else. And then not a huge touted feature, but obviously it is one of two cameras that's on there. So the other camera being for the wide angle, and the wide angle is very well done on this. You can get a really, really wide shot on this. And while other cameras kind of taught a little bit about, or for other phones taught a little bit about it, this works. You see it happening, and it works really well. And it's probably the primary use that I have when I'm using this phone with the camera, is like, I need to get like a really good wide angle shot, and this is gonna do it. So the camera just in itself is a pretty good camera. It's like not bad at all, and it, you know, like, I've gotten really good shots on this versus like some other smartphones, so that's not bad. Another cool feature that it has, and I wouldn't say it's much of a feature, but it does still have the headphone jack, which is very much something that I like. It's crazy. I use it about 50% of the time, so there are things that I just plug in, want to hear it, and that's it, versus like having something wirelessly. But it's just, I guess, an important thing that kind of just frees up you having to put in multiple things in multiple ports, versus like I could only have one thing on one port because something else is being used. Good that they're still on there, and LG has thought of that, and it works really well. Or I should say it's on there and it's good. Another note about the headphone jack is obviously that it has, and even with this Bluetooth, it has a hi-fi quad DAC for hi-fi music and high fidelity music streaming and audio. So you'll be able to do that with wireless headphones, with wired headphones. So that's really cool. It works really well with that. It also supports DTSX. But that's really for external stuff. So if your headphones support it, or if a unit that you have supports it, and it's able to do it, then you pushing it to something to do that works. Aside the fact that it has like HDR and I think it's Dolby Vision and stuff like that on there. So I was watching a little bit of Lost in Space, and it looked really crisp, really clean, detailed colors throughout each scene. So really that looks really good. The phone overall just looks really good. Another feature that they taught is the actual volume of things. And while I don't feel like I'm gonna have like a good test of doing this here, it's basically has the bass boost on it, or what they taught to have a bass boost on it. So I'll say that on its own, the volume level goes the volume level goes really high. And not only that, but it's probably louder than some others. Probably one of the loudest smartphones that I've heard in recent time. But beyond the fact that it's just loud on its own, they taught the feature that if you place it on some sort of like flat surface, table or anything else, you'll get the bass boost, since the chassis of the actual device gives the vibration to make the thing louder and give you a louder, denser volume on anything that you're watching. It does work. I would say it doesn't work as well as they make it seem. Like, they make it seem like, oh, it goes like twice as loud. It goes marginally louder than its original volume, and it's louder than other smartphones at that point for sure. So it is probably the loudest thing you hear on a smartphone that I know of. But it isn't like as loud as it can fill up an entire room like a small speaker. I'm not sure if it really has that kind of volume, but it's louder than your phone. You could probably get a small room full of people to like watch something together and just kind of plop it down, and it's like, okay, now everybody can really hear it, even if there's like light talking and stuff like that. So the feature works. Doesn't work as like a crazy amount, but I mean, it's a feature that probably doesn't need to be added, and it's there, and it works, so it's cool. So I mean, it's something that I've used because I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna sit it on the table and like listen to whatever song right away that someone recommended to me, versus like pushing it somewhere else, and it just does what it needs to do, and it sounds a little bit louder from doing so. So that's cool. So with that being said, it's no surprise that you see this, you're like, oh, this looks like a copy of something else. And for some people, that's something that they didn't like for the iPhone X, although it's trying to free up as much real estate as possible so that you see the screen. And one of the coolest things is that, or a really cool thing is that the screen looks really, really good. The phone itself looks really nice. Sleek phone, sleek device. But the notch on top, some people have a problem with. I personally don't. But you can get rid of the notch, and that's LG's new second screen. So just going to a quick settings tab will bring you to the second screen, and you can literally just go from the little hinge on top to a new second screen. So basically it will fill it up that it has, and so this thing is obviously just a full screen on its own with no parts missing, because obviously there's just a little hinge that comes over it. This works obviously with the phone being like this, the phone being on while you're browsing and stuff like that, but it doesn't work on all apps, and some of the apps just still have the hinge come out, or it has like some weird spacing, which that has to be a developer thing that that would have to be put into place. But this is sort of like a newer kind of sense of doing something, and especially it's only really on the LG device until other phones possibly want to do something like this. It's not something that's going to probably be worldwide, or even addressed as much as you would think. And for me, for now, the notch works, so I'm gonna be rocking the notch, and I'm okay with that. Lastly, I want to talk about, I could keep going on and on about the phone, is the fact that it has a dedicated Google Assistant button. Now, very interesting, as this is like one of maybe two devices that really do it, that's not a Pixel phone. and it just shows the commitment of like what Google Assistant is going to do in the future for all things home, and obviously mobile, because obviously that's something that's very, very big and very taught about, and especially through like CES and everything else. So it basically is right there, and you know, if you put it and you click on it, it'll bring up what the fuck, and you know, when you touch it and you click on it, then boom, brings up the Google Assistant, and I can ask for something, as it's hearing me talk about all this.
Here are some results from the web.
Yeah, so it works, and it's pretty responsive. So overall, a really good phone. The phone should be releasing really soon if it's not out now. Price tag is around anywhere between $700 and $800, which might be a little too pricey compared to some of the other smartphones, but you know, to be really competitive. But you're getting a lot for what it is, and you're really getting a really, really slick device. So something to definitely consider, as I really enjoy using the smartphone. I'm still going to be continuing to use it throughout all my other kind of testing, and then just even as a daily kind of driver now and then. So definitely recommend the LG G7 ThinQ. Really, really cool device. Really cool device to launch for all those summer good shots, vacationing, anything else. And don't be afraid to take it, you know, into the water, or that it drops, so that you have it anywhere else. Since it's IP68 certified, so pretty much waterproof, or it is waterproof. So don't worry about that. Very good. Let us know what you think of the phone, what you think of the review. Is this something that you'll be considering buying? Should we be doing more cell phone reviews, or anything else on the pipeline? Let us know. This is Remy with Level 1 News, signing off.